in the name of personal injury law.
We often have Steve Sinas of the Sinas Stramus Law Firm to talk to us about various aspects of personal injury law. But today, Steve has with him a very special guest. Steve, did you want to introduce your guest?
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's even better to be here with a special guest. He's a man by the name of Steve Whalen. I have the honor of having been his attorney in relation to serious injuries he and his wife Sally sustained in a motor vehicle crash that occurred in October of 2015. And he's been so kind to come on the show today to share with us some of his experiences regarding this crash, just to give the viewers some insights about what it's really like to be in a crash and the realities people face. So I just want to thank Steve for being here. It's so great to have you, Steve.
Thank you. So just to tell a bit of the story, October of 2015 was a gorgeous sunny day. We were going to go to Grand Rapids from East Lansing to go to a musical, and grabbed the keys, got out of the car, driving on Highway 96, and then noticing the beautiful fall leaves. And then I noticed a vehicle that was coming across the center median at us at a very high rate of speed. See, as a job, I'm a police officer, and part of my job is I work on the fatal accident reconstruction team of my county. And I pictured right away what was going to happen in this crash. So I hit the brakes as hard as I could. We collided. The driver coming at us was going 90 miles an hour. We were going 70. It was a horrific crash, horrific explosion. Immediately, airbags, everything went off. And then I am in the car wondering what's happening. I lean over to my wife. I say, Sally, Sally, and she has no response at first. And then within a few seconds, she said, Steve, it hurts. And I thought, well, I was just so thankful to God because, number one, she knew my name, which means she had cognitive ability and she was alive. Right away, we kind of jumped into my training mode, and somebody came up to the car. I knew that we were pinned in the car because it was destroyed all around us. And this person asked, what can we do for you? And I said that please make sure they know that the 911 knows that we need the jaws of life and that we need a lot of help. And I also asked them the condition of the other driver right there. And he left and then came back and said the other driver had passed away. So it's very, very dramatic. In the car, trapped in there, I then found my phone and called all my kids and had to give them incredible news that we were in this horrific accident. My wife was having a difficult time breathing, but we ended up having great response from the paramedics and the firefighters and the police officers. And then we found ourselves in ambulances heading to Sparrow Hospital.
And Steve, you're such a respected member of our community, and your experiences investigating crashes obviously plays into the perspective you have here today. But I think one thing that what you've told me in the past about this particular crash is that here's where a crash that occurred where you were actually injured and you and Sally were injured. And can you explain to the viewers what that was like for the two of you to deal with your conditions and your care needs following this serious crash?
So I didn't even really realize that I was injured at first because of just the intensity of it all, and I was so worried about my wife. Once they were able to take her out of the car, then I realized I had significant injury. We both had some traumatic brain injury. We both had significant injuries everywhere else. That process then we jumped 9 months forward, and I finally go back to work in 9 months. My wife never was able to go back to work. We had 24-hour care in our home for 3 months. We were in the hospital for over a month. Incredible people giving us incredible care. Our community came out, both of our workplaces. My wife worked for the schools. It was amazing the amount of support and encouragement and also God's healing, but it was a really, really long process.
Well, Steve, what was it like for Sally dealing with your injuries as going down the road of recovery?
She was much more severely injured, many more internal injuries. She has not been able to go back to work since then. She's happily taking care of her grandkids today, so she's doing great. But it was really hard because I would be in a bed. We had hospital beds moving to our home, and I couldn't help her, and she couldn't help me. So it was really quite dramatic. But now, 5-6 years later, We're incredibly grateful, but it was a really long haul.
One thing that's really important to bring out about Steve and Sally's situation has to do with insurance coverage issues. And so they had lifetime no-fault insurance for their medical expense coverage in relation to their auto accident injuries. Everyone used to have lifetime coverage. Now consumers can buy various amounts of medical expense coverage and even opt out of it entirely. So I know that Steve and Sally racked up quite a bit of medical bills, and that their lifetime no fault certainly was there to take care of those bills. So that was one way in which they were fully covered. But the other thing that happened is that the at-fault driver only had $20,000 of liability insurance to compensate Steve and Sally for their pain, suffering, loss of quality of life, that type of compensation. And so one thing to understand in this situation is that the Whalens were the victims of this horrible, tragic crash. And they were also the victims of a crash involving a driver that didn't have nearly enough insurance. And that's where their decision to buy something called underinsured motorist coverage made a big difference. There was a limit on that. There always is a limit. They wish theirs was maybe a little bit higher than what it could have been, considering the nature of their injuries. But Steve, I don't know if you have any further thoughts on insurance coverage issues and your experience, regarding insurance coverage and your own crash.
Absolutely. And even since then, we've actually upped our insurance since our crash. There's just so many other traumatic things happening in your life that you don't want finances to be the one thing crippling you in the future. We are grateful for the situation. If there is anything additional to this crash, additional surges, they will be covered. But now I'm very thankful that we are able to get some more insurance.
Yeah, and it just brings up so many important aspects of the insurance buying process now in Michigan. You buy the lifetime coverage so that you have all your medical expenses covered, even if you're catastrophically injured. And then you consider buying as much underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage for yourself in the event you're hit by an at-fault driver who doesn't have enough insurance.
Yes.
And so, Steve, the other thing you bring to the table is this experience of also investigating crashes. So now you have like this whole the whole range of experience, right? Being in one and investigating many. And one thing I just wanted to get from you before we end here today is any pointers for our viewers if they ever find themselves in a crash, what to think, what to do, just any common sense pointers.
I've been involved in hundreds of horrible accidents and horrible crashes. First of all, if you have your airbags go off, then there'll be a sense of, you'll smell a burning smell. That doesn't mean your car's on fire. That means the airbags went off. Also, to make sure to assess injuries quickly, to see the status of how everyone's doing before anyone moves. Sometimes people get out of the car quickly and then they find out they got an injury, and that could exacerbate that. I think it's really important when you are taking care of yourself, make sure you don't have things to worry about. If you have a traumatic injury, I would always call an attorney. I think it really has helped us tremendously. My kids actually initiated that with us. And make sure you get the right 911 help as soon as possible.
It's Steve, listening to your story, you really had the wherewithal to call and tell them exactly what you needed and what your situation was. And I'm not sure a regular person would be able to do that in the way that you did, but I'm hoping that today's lesson basically can help other people keep their heads on, keep calm like you did, and to potentially save their lives.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so grateful you came out today, Steve. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
In the Name of Personal Injury Law is brought to you by the Sinas Law Firm.